Nachman that like when you have the Hasidic tradition, we have a lot of Torah. There are all these paradoxes and difficulties, conflicts. So they say they have ways of working it out. There are ways of working it out. At this time you should think like this, and at that time you should think like that. There's a famous Torah that they say Lech Rei Del that the HaKadosh Baruch Hu said to Moshe Rabbeinu, Lech Rei Del go down to the people. So there's a Chassidish Torah, they say that Lech Rei Del that's the task of the tzaddik, that the tzaddik is on a high madrega. The tzaddik is on a high madrega, and he's on a high level, and he's connected to God. He's trying to be connected to God all the time. But if he stays up there all the time, then he can't relate to the people. If he stays up there all the time, he can't relate to the people. So he stays up there all the time, he can't relate to the people. So what benefit will the people have of him? So part of his greatness is Lech Rei Del Ha'om, that he, so to speak, acts in such a way as to deny himself further spiritual development. He gives up some of his own high spiritual level in order to minister to the people. Lech Rei Del Ha'om, go down to the people. Go down to the people. He allows himself to go down to the level of the people in order to communicate with the people and uplift them. In order to communicate to the people and uplift them, he allows himself to go down to the people. That's part of the greatness of the tzaddik, that he's not focused solely on his own spiritual development and on hitting the spiritual heights, because in that way, no one else will be helped by him. So, in a basic way, Lech Rei Del Ha'om, the tzaddik sacrifices something of his own spiritual development in order that the people may benefit of it. But it says, and he engages himself with the people and pays attention to the needs of the people and seeks to uplift the people spiritually. But it says in Svarim that also that there's a havtacha, that the tzaddik is promised from on high by God, that if he so to speak goes down to the people, in the end he won't lose from it spiritually. In the end, his madregas, his levels will be restored to him. And then he won't lose from it spiritually, because he's a tzaddik and he's doing the right thing spiritually and going down and seeking to take care of the people. Because of that, his spiritual levels will be restored to him. His spiritual levels will be restored to him, and he won't wind up losing ultimately because of his engagement with the people. So, I just want to say about Reb Nachman that the sense one gets, I think, is that there are all these Torahs that seek to reconcile the different sides of things, and all these Torahs in the Sfarim that seek to show how things can be worked out, and one needn't be depressed about things. But Reb Nachman is in struggle. Reb Nachman is a man of conflict. I think in Reb Nachman we see someone who exemplifies the idea that it's really quite difficult to work it out, even after all the Torahs, and even after all the words of comfort, and even after all the attempts at reconciliation. Things work out, things can be worked out. He's constantly torn between different poles, and it's very difficult to work it out. He's constantly struggling to work it out. Yes, you're supposed to be with the people, and you won't ultimately lose you won't ultimately lose any of the spiritual level that you've gained, but it's very difficult. Reb Nachman sees it doesn't work out so easily. If I spend time with the people, I do get distracted from my spiritual goal. And what am I supposed to do? And yes, one is required to serve God and serve God in joy, but I get discouraged. I often get discouraged. What shall I do? It's very difficult to work things out. He's a man in struggle, constantly in struggle. As a matter of fact, he often was tormented by the question of his own possible inadequacy and his own unworthiness to be a leader. He was a leader of Hasidim, but he considered himself a sinner much of the time. So he was often disturbed about this. Who am I to lead? What gives me a right to lead? I'm aware, everything we've said up to now shows that he was keenly aware of his own shortcomings. So that made him think, what right do I have to lead Hasidim? So he once said, justified himself in the following way. Once there was a very rich man who had many thousands. Also, the rich man said, if anyone wants to borrow money, they should come to him, and he will lend the money. Of course, many people came and they borrowed money. And that rich man, he had a notebook where he wrote everything down. All the people who borrowed money from him. One time he took the notebook in his hand, and he started to look in it, and he saw that he gave out a lot of money for his loans. And nobody's paying too much attention. He lent out all this money, and all this money is floating around out there, and people are not paying attention. They are not coming and paying up, and no one is going around to collect the money from him. The stomach says. So he was pretty angry about this. And he was disturbed about it. Among these people who borrowed from the rich man, there was one man who also borrowed money. And he went and lost the money. He lost the money in some business, some investment, which didn't pan out. Until he had nothing with which to pay the debt. And he felt very bad. He had great suffering. This man suffered greatly from the fact that he wasn't able to repay the debt. From the fact that he's unable to pay the debt. So this man decided in his mind, that at any rate it would be correct for him to meet with this rich man. And to tell him everything that's in his heart, to tell him that he really wants to pay, but he can't. It's not his fault. He just can't. And he came to the rich man, and he told him the whole story. He started telling him the whole story. I want to pay you. I can't. I'm sorry. I really want to pay you. And the rich man answered and told him, what do I care about the money that you owe me? What does it mean to me, such a small sum? You as an individual, you owe me a very small amount of money. Whether you'll get rid of the money and you'll pay me or you won't, it doesn't matter to me. It's very little. All the money that's owed to me out there, all my money that's out there, is a lot more than what you owe me. What you owe me is a pittance. What you owe me is a pittance compared to all the money that's owed me by these various people out there, and that's not coming back to me. Al Kain, therefore, you want to make it up to me, you owe me the money, and you're not paying me. Al Kain, it is my will that you go. Go to all the people who owe me money. And try to collect from them. The task and remind them remind them that they are in debt to me. This and this much money. And why don't they pay? And even if they won't pay the whole thing, but each one will only pay up a little bit of the debt. Even if each one of those people that you speak to will only pay a little of the debt, even if each one of those people that you speak to will only pay a little of the debt, it will still be a little of the debt that they owe. That will still equal much more than what you owe me, that pittance that you owe me. So the Nimshal is